The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the Grand Hotel, casting golden rectangles across the polished marble floor. 6-year-old Mei Lin sat quietly on a plush red bench in the corner of the vast lobby, her small legs swinging back and forth, not quite reaching the floor. She wore her favorite blue dress with little white flowers and clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy, who went everywhere with her. Mei had been coming to this fancy hotel with her mom for as long as she could remember. Her mother, Ling, worked as part of the housekeeping staff, making sure the rooms were perfect for the important people who stayed there. Today was supposed to be Mei's day at her aunt's house, but Aunt Wei had caught a cold. So Mei had to come along to work instead. "Remember to stay right here where I can see you when I come down to check," her mother had told her, handing Mei her backpack filled with coloring books, a small box of crayons that was missing the purple one, and a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in wax paper for lunch.
"I'll come down every hour, okay?"
"Be a good girl," Mei nodded solemnly. She was always a good girl. She knew her mom worked very hard since Dad had left them 3 years ago. Sometimes she heard her mom crying late at night when she thought Mei was asleep. Mei understood more than grown-ups realized. The hotel lobby buzzed with activity. Men in suits walked briskly, talking loudly into their phones. Women with shiny hair pulled back tight clicked across the floor in high heels. Bellhops pushed carts piled with expensive-looking suitcases. Mei watched it all with wide, curious eyes. She liked to make up stories about the people she saw. The tall woman with red glasses was secretly a spy. The old man with the funny mustache was actually a wizard in disguise. By 11 o'clock, Mei had colored 3 pages in her book and was getting a little bored. She glanced around the lobby looking for something interesting. That's when she noticed him, an older man sitting alone in one of the big leather chairs near the fireplace. He wore a dark gray suit that looked expensive even to Mei's young eyes. He had white hair and wrinkles around his eyes that crinkled when he smiled at something on his phone. What caught Mei's attention, though, was how he kept touching his chest, right over his heart. His face looked funny, too, kind of sweaty and gray like when Mei felt sick with the flu last winter. He loosened his tie and took deep breaths. Mei remembered the special video they had watched at school just last week. Her teacher, Mrs. Chen, had shown them what to do in emergencies. There had been a part about heart attacks showing how people might grab their chest or arm, look pale and have trouble breathing. Mei hugged Mr. Hoppy tighter as she watched the man. He didn't look right at all. He put down his phone and used both hands to rub his left arm. Then he tried to stand up but sat back down heavily, his breathing getting faster. Nobody else seemed to notice him. They were all too busy rushing around or looking at their phones. The man's expensive water bottle tumbled from his hand, spilling across the marble floor. Still, nobody looked his way. Mei felt her heart beating fast. This wasn't like her make-believe games. Something was really wrong with the man, and nobody was helping him. Taking a deep breath, Mei slid off the bench, keeping Mr. Hoppy tucked safely under her arm. She walked quickly across the lobby, careful to avoid the busy adults rushing past. When she reached the man, she could hear his breathing. It sounded raspy and strange. "Are you okay, mister?" she asked, her voice small but clear. The man looked up, surprised to see a little girl standing there. He tried to smile, but it turned into a grimace. "I'm fine, little one," he managed to say, but Mei could tell he wasn't fine at all. "You look like the man in our school video," Mei said seriously. "The one having a heart attack." The man's eyes widened slightly. He opened his mouth to speak, but instead made a small groaning sound and clutched his chest harder. Mei didn't wait for him to answer. She turned and ran toward the front desk as fast as her little legs would carry her. Mr. Hoppy bounced against her side with each step. The front desk seemed so tall from her perspective, and she had to stand on her tiptoes to see over it. A young man with slicked back hair and a name tag that read Daniel looked down at her with mild annoyance. "Can I help you, little girl?" he asked in the way adults often speak to children when they're busy with more important things. "The man by the fireplace is having a heart attack," Mei said clearly, pointing back toward the leather chairs, like in our school video. "He's holding his chest in his arm and his face looks all gray and he can't breathe good." Daniel glanced in the direction she was pointing but didn't seem convinced. "I'm sure he's fine, sweetie." "Where's your mommy?" Mei felt frustration bubbling up inside her. Why weren't grown-ups listening? She stomped her foot, something her mother would normally scold her for. "No, he needs help right now." "Please look at him." Her voice rose enough that several people nearby turned to stare. A woman in a black suit with a hotel manager pin stepped over. "What's going on here?" "The man over there is having a heart attack," May repeated firmly, pointing again. "Nobody's helping him." Something in her serious tone must have convinced the manager because she looked where May was pointing. The man had slumped further in his chair, his eyes half closed. "Oh my God," the manager gasped. "Daniel, call 911 immediately." She hurried toward the man, speaking rapidly into her walkie-talkie. Suddenly, the lobby burst into activity. Security guards rushed over. Someone called out asking if there was a doctor present. A woman in a blue dress stepped forward saying she was a nurse. People gathered around, their faces concerned. The manager had the man lie down on the floor while the nurse loosened his tie and checked his pulse. May stood back, still clutching Mr. Hoppy. Her heart pounded in her chest as she watched everything unfold. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see her mother's worried face. "May, what happened?" "I came down to check on you and saw all this commotion," Ling said, kneeling beside her daughter. "The man was sick, Mama. Like in our school video about heart attacks. I told them, but they didn't believe me at first." Ling looked from her daughter to the scene by the fireplace, where paramedics were now rushing in with a stretcher and equipment. Her eyes widened as she realized what had happened. "You saw he was in trouble?" she asked softly. May nodded. Nobody else was looking at him. They were all too busy. As the paramedics worked on the man, slipping an oxygen mask over his face and attaching monitors to his chest, one of the hotel managers approached May and her mother. "Are you this little girl's mother?" he asked Ling, who nodded and stood protectively next to her daughter. "Your daughter may have just saved Mr. Zhao's life. He's one of our most important guests, a tech company founder worth billions. The paramedics said if she hadn't alerted us when she did." He let the sentence hang unfinished in the air. Ling put her arm around May's shoulders, a mixture of pride and shock on her face. "How did you know, sweetheart?" she asked May. "Mrs. Chen showed us a video last week," May explained. "It showed what heart attacks look like. The man was doing all the same things." As the paramedics prepared to take Mr. Zhao to the hospital, his eyes fluttered open. He looked around confused, then caught sight of May standing with her mother. Despite his obvious pain, he raised his hand slightly, as if in recognition or thanks, before the paramedics wheeled him away. The hotel manager turned to Ling. "We'd like to speak with you both later, if that's all right. Mr. Zhao has been staying with us for almost a month during an important business deal. He's alone here, no family with him. I'm sure when he recovers he'll want to thank your daughter personally." Ling nodded, looking slightly overwhelmed. She squeezed May's hand. "You did a very brave thing today," she whispered to her daughter. May just hugged Mr. Hoppy tighter, watching as the last of the paramedics disappeared through the hotel's revolving doors. She didn't feel brave. She just did what Mrs. Chen had taught them to do. She hoped the nice man with the white hair would be okay. Little did May know that this chance encounter in a hotel lobby would be the first thread in a tapestry that would weave her life, together with Mr. Zhao's, in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. As she sat back down on the red bench, waiting while her mother finished her conversation with the hotel manager, May had no idea that everything was about to change, not just for her, but for her mother and for the billionaire whose life she had just saved. The rest of the day passed in a blur. People kept coming up to May, patting her head and telling her what a special little girl she was. By the time her mother finished her shift, May was tired of all the attention. She just wanted to go home, have dinner, and maybe watch some cartoons before bed. But as they walked out of the hotel hand in hand, Ling looked down at her daughter with new eyes. There had always been something special about May, a quiet watchfulness, a wisdom beyond her years. Today that specialness had saved a man's life. "You know," Ling said softly as they waited for the bus that would take them back to their small apartment on the other side of the city, "your father would be very proud of what you did today." May looked up surprised. Her mother rarely mentioned her father. "Really?" "Really," Ling confirmed, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Very, very proud." May smiled and leaned against her mother's side, suddenly feeling very tired but also strangely happy. She had no way of knowing that the events of this ordinary Tuesday would echo through the years to come, or that the man whose life she saved would soon reappear in ways that would transform her future forever. The next morning, May woke up earlier than usual. Sunlight peeked through the thin curtains of the small bedroom she shared with her mother in their two-room apartment. She could hear Ling in the kitchen, the familiar sounds of breakfast being prepared, the gentle clinking of bowls, the whistle of the kettle, the sizzle of eggs in the pan. But today felt different. He sat up in bed, hugging Mr. Hoppy close. She wondered about the man from the hotel, Mr. Zhao. Was he okay? Would she ever see him again? The memory of his pale face and the way he had raised his hand slightly as the paramedics took him away stayed with her. "May, breakfast is ready," her mother called from the kitchen. As May ate her congee with century egg, Ling kept glancing at her daughter with a mixture of wonder and pride. "Mr. Wong from the hotel called this morning," she said finally. "He said Mr. Zhao is doing better. He's in the hospital, but the doctors think he will recover." May nodded, relief washing over her. "That's good," she said simply, spooning another mouthful of congee. "Mr. Wong also said—" Ling hesitated, as if trying to find the right words. "He said that when Mr. Zhao woke up, he asked about you. He wants to meet you to thank you properly." May's eyes widened. "Really, but I didn't do anything special. I just remembered what Mrs. Chen taught us." Ling reached across the small table and squeezed her daughter's hand. "What you did was very special, May, very special indeed. Not many grown-ups would have noticed what you noticed. Not many would have been brave enough to speak up when no one was listening." After breakfast, Ling surprised May by saying she didn't have to go to school that day. "The hotel has given me the day off," she explained, "and Mr. Wong has arranged for a car to take us to the hospital to visit Mr. Zhao, if you feel okay about that." May thought about it for a moment, then nodded. She was curious about the man whose life she had helped save. The car that arrived was nothing like the bus they usually took. It was long and black with windows so dark you couldn't see inside. A driver in a neat uniform opened the door for them, and May gasped at the leather seats and the little television inside. Her mother looked equally amazed but tried to hide it. "Is this Mr. Zhao's car?" May whispered as they settled into the soft seats. "I think so," Ling whispered back, smoothing her best dress nervously. The hospital was huge and busy, but they didn't have to wait in line or ask for directions. A woman in a smart suit was waiting for them in the lobby. She introduced herself as Ms. Han, Mr. Zhao's personal assistant. "Mr. Zhao is very eager to meet you both," Ms. Han said, leading them through corridors and up elevators, past rooms filled with people and hospital beds. "The doctors say if you hadn't acted so quickly, young lady, Mr. Zhao might not have made it." May clutched Mr. Hoppy tighter. She hadn't brought him to show off. She just felt braver with him there. They stopped outside a door where two serious-looking men in dark suits stood guard. They nodded at Ms. Han and stepped aside. The room inside wasn't like the other hospital rooms they had passed. It was large and bright with flowers everywhere. Mr. Zhao was sitting up in bed looking much better than when May had last seen him. His face had color now and his eyes were clear and alert. He wore a hospital gown, but somehow he still looked important. When he saw May, his face lit up with a smile that made the wrinkles around his eyes crinkle. "So this is my little hero," he said, his voice warm but a little weak. May suddenly felt shy. She half hid behind her mother's legs. "It's okay, May," Ling said gently, urging her forward. "Say hello to Mr. Zhao." "Hello," May said quietly. "I'm glad you're feeling better." Mr. Zhao chuckled. "Thanks to you, I'm feeling much better. Please, both of you, come sit." He gestured to comfortable chairs beside his bed. Once they were seated, Mr. Zhao looked at May with curious eyes. "Ms. Han tells me you knew I was having a heart attack because you learned about it in school. Is that right?" May nodded. "Mrs. Chen showed us a video last week. It showed what to look for. You were doing all the things from the video. And you're only 6 years old?" Mr. Zhao asked, sounding impressed. 6 3/4, May corrected, making the adults laugh. 6 3/4, Mr. Zhao repeated with a smile, and already so observant. "Tell me, what do you want to be when you grow up, May?" May thought for a moment. "I want to be a doctor," she said finally. "Or maybe a teacher like Mrs. Chen, or maybe both." Mr. Zhao nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Those are excellent choices." He turned to Ling. "Your daughter is remarkable, Ms. Lin." Ling smiled proudly. "Yes, she is. The doctors tell me if May hadn't recognized the signs so quickly, if the paramedics hadn't arrived when they did, I might have—" He glanced at May and changed what he was going to say. "Well, let's just say I owe your daughter my life." He reached for a small remote on his bedside table and pressed a button. A moment later, a nurse came in carrying a tray with tea and cookies. May's eyes lit up at the sight of the fancy cookies, shaped like animals and decorated with colorful icing. While May enjoyed her cookies, Mr. Zhao and Ling talked. May didn't understand everything they said, something about proper recognition and future security. But she caught enough to know they were talking about her. Mr. Zhao, Ms. Han interrupted gently. The doctor said you should rest after 15 minutes. Mr. Zhao sighed but nodded. He turned back to May and Ling. I won't keep you any longer today, but I hope you'll visit again. And please think about what I've said, Ms. Lin. I'm quite serious about my offer. As they stood to leave, Mr. Zhao reached under his pillow and pulled out a small, wrapped package. For you, May, he said, holding it out. A small token of my appreciation. May looked at her mother, who nodded that it was okay to take it. The package was wrapped in shiny paper with a red bow. May carefully undid the wrapping to find a beautiful snow globe inside. When she shook it, glittering snowflakes swirled around a tiny figure of a girl in a blue dress, standing tall and proud. It reminded me of you, Mr. Zhao said softly. Thank you, May whispered, genuinely delighted with the gift. I've never had a snow globe before. As they walked out of the hospital room, May turned back for one last look at Mr. Zhao. He raised his hand in the same small wave he had given from the stretcher the day before. On the ride back home in the fancy car, Ling seemed lost in thought. Mama, what did Mr. Zhao say to you? May asked, still clutching her new snow globe. Ling took a deep breath. He wants to help us, May. He said that people have helped him throughout his life and now he wants to pay it forward. What does pay it forward mean? May asked, watching the snowflakes settle in her globe. It means when someone does something kind for you, instead of paying them back, you do something kind for someone else, Ling explained. Mr. Zhao says you did something extraordinarily kind for him, and now he wants to do something for you, for us. What kind of something? May asked, curious. Ling hesitated. He's offered to pay for your education, May. Not just elementary school, but all the way through college if you want. He's also offered me a job at one of his companies with better pay and hours than at the hotel. May's eyes widened. Really? Does that mean you won't have to work so many hours? And I can go to a school with a real playground? Ling laughed, tears in her eyes. Yes, my clever girl. That's exactly what it means. That evening, as Ling tucked May into bed, they placed the snow globe on the small table beside them. In the darkness, May could just make out the silhouette of the little girl in the globe, standing brave and tall. Mama, May whispered as sleep began to claim her. Do you think I really could be a doctor someday? Ling kissed her daughter's forehead. After what happened today, my darling, I think you can be anything you want to be. Later that night, long after May had fallen asleep, Ling sat at their tiny kitchen table with a cup of tea, reading through the papers Mr. Zhao's assistant had given her. They detailed the educational trust fund he wanted to establish for May, and the job offer for Ling at one of his tech company's administrative offices, a job that would pay nearly 3 times what she earned at the hotel. It seemed too good to be true, and yet Ms. Han had assured her it was real. Mr. Zhao was known for his philanthropy, she had explained, but this was different. This was personal. He has no children of his own, Ms. Han had told Ling quietly as they left the hospital. No family at all, really. Your daughter touched something in him. I haven't seen him look that way in all the years I've worked for him. Ling glanced toward the bedroom where her daughter slept peacefully, the snow globe catching the moonlight from the window. Tomorrow their new life would begin. A life made possible by a 6-year-old girl who had paid attention in class and had the courage to speak up when no one else would listen. Outside their apartment window, the city lights twinkled like stars. Somewhere across town in his hospital room, Mr. Zhao was making plans too, plans that would change not just one little girl's life, but countless others. But that was a story for another day. 3 months had passed since that fateful day at the Grand Hotel. Autumn leaves swirled outside the window of May and Ling's new apartment. It wasn't a mansion or anything fancy, but with its 2 bedrooms, sunny kitchen, and small balcony overlooking a neighborhood park, it felt like a palace compared to their old place. May stood in front of the mirror in her room, her very own room, with pale yellow walls and a bookshelf already filling with books. She adjusted her new school uniform, a crisp white shirt, navy blue skirt, and a red tie that her mother had helped her knot. Sunshine Academy was one of the best schools in the city, the kind of place Ling had only dreamed her daughter might attend someday. "May, are you ready? The car will be here in 10 minutes, Ling called from the kitchen. The car. That was another change. A driver named Mr. Wu now took May to school each morning before taking Ling to her new job at Jiaotech's main office, where she worked as an administrative coordinator. The position not only paid better but gave her regular hours and weekends off, time she could now spend with May. "Coming, Mama." May grabbed her backpack and Mr. Hoppy, who still went everywhere with her despite the teasing she sometimes got from other kids. Some things hadn't changed. Breakfast was steamed buns and soy milk, a luxury they could now afford daily rather than just on special occasions. As they ate, Ling reminded May of their plans for the afternoon. "Remember, Mr. Zhao is coming to visit after school. He wants to talk to us about a new project." May nodded, her mouth full of bun. Mr. Zhao had become a regular visitor since his release from the hospital 6 weeks ago. Despite his busy schedule running his technology empire, he made time at least once a week to check on May and Ling. Sometimes he brought gifts, books for May or plants for their new apartment, but mostly he just came to talk, to hear about May's progress at school or to share stories from his travels. May liked his visits. At first she had been shy around the important man, but his kind eyes and the way he really listened when she spoke had won her over. He never treated her like she was just a kid. Instead, he asked her opinions on things, recommended books she might enjoy, and sometimes even brought puzzles for them to solve together. The doorbell rang precisely at 3:30 that afternoon. Mr. Zhao was never late. He stood in the doorway with his usual warm smile, leaning slightly on a carved wooden cane, a reminder of his heart attack and the surgery that followed. Behind him, Ms. Han carried a large portfolio and several bags. "How's my favorite first grader?" Mr. Zhao asked as May ran to greet him. "I got a star in math today," May announced proudly. "And Ms. Huang said my science project about hearts was the best in the class." "Of course it was," Mr. Zhao chuckled, following May into the living room where Ling had prepared tea and small cakes. "You're becoming quite the expert on the cardiovascular system." Once they were settled with their tea, Mr. Zhao's expression grew more serious. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past months," he began, nodding at Ms. Han, who opened the portfolio and spread several documents on the coffee table. "When I was in the hospital, I had plenty of time to reflect on my life. I've built companies, made fortunes, traveled the world, but what have I really contributed? What will I leave behind?" He smiled at May, who was listening intently while nibbling on a cake. "Then this brave little girl came along and saved my life, all because she paid attention during a school safety lesson." He leaned forward, his eyes bright with purpose. "I want to create a foundation, the May Lean Heart Smart Foundation. Its mission will be to teach children across the country about emergency response, especially how to recognize the signs of heart attacks, strokes, and other medical emergencies." Ling gasped softly. "You want to name a foundation after May?" Mr. Zhao nodded. "With your permission, of course. We've already begun developing age-appropriate educational materials and videos that schools can use for free. The foundation will also fund research into making emergency medical information more accessible to children." Ms. Han pulled out colorful brochures showing cartoon characters teaching kids about various health emergencies. One character, a small girl with pigtails wearing a blue dress and holding a stuffed rabbit, looked suspiciously like May with Mr. Hoppy. Is that supposed to be me?" May asked, pointing to the character. Mr. Zhao grinned. "Meet Heart Smart May, our program mascot. She helps teach other kids what to do in emergencies. What do you think?" May studied the brochure solemnly, then broke into a wide smile. "She has Mr. Hoppy." "We couldn't leave him out," Mr. Zhao said with a wink. "He was there when you saved my life, after all." While May examined the brochures, Mr. Zhao turned to Ling with a more serious expression. "There's something else I'd like to propose," he said quietly. "As part of the Foundation's work, we'll be hosting events at schools and community centers. We'd like May to attend some of these, with your supervision, of course, to share her story. Children relate better to other children, and May's experience could really inspire them." Ling hesitated. "I don't want her to be put on display or made to feel different from other children." I completely understand, Mr. Zhao assured her. Her participation would be limited and always with your approval. We'd work around her school schedule and make sure it's a positive experience. Can I do it, Mama? Mei asked eagerly. I want to help other kids learn what Mrs. Chen taught me. Looking at her daughter's excited face, Ling found it hard to say no. We can try it, I suppose, but if at any point you don't want to continue, Mei, you just need to say so. Mr. Zhao clapped his hands together. Excellent. Now there's one more thing. He nodded to Ms. Han, who brought forward the bag she had carried in, some prototype materials for our first school visit next month. From the bags emerged t-shirts, caps, and even a small lab coat, all emblazoned with the Heart Smart logo. A heart with a small bandage and the words, "Kids can save lives too." There was also a professional-looking doctor kit with real, but safe, medical tools, a stethoscope, blood pressure cuff, and other instruments, all sized for a child's hands. This is for you, Mei, Mr. Zhao said, handing her the lab coat and doctor kit. I heard you want to be a doctor someday. Mei's eyes widened as she took the gifts. Without hesitation, she put on the lab coat, which fell to her knees, and hung the stethoscope around her neck. How do I look? She asked, striking a pose. Like a real doctor, Ling said, her voice thick with emotion. Dr. Mei Lin, Mr. Zhao said with a formal nod. It suits you. Later, after their guests had left, Mei practiced using her new stethoscope on Mr. Hoppy, listening intently to his stuffed chest as if expecting to hear a heartbeat. Ling watched her daughter from the doorway, marveling at the turn their lives had taken. 3 months ago, they had been struggling to make ends meet in a tiny apartment. Now they had not only financial security but a purpose, a way to help others. And it had all started because her observant little girl had noticed something that even adults had missed. That night, as Ling tucked Mei into bed, the little girl was still bubbling with excitement about the foundation and her role in it. Do you think I'll be on TV, Mama? Will other kids want my autograph? Ling smoothed Mei's hair back from her forehead. This isn't about being famous, sweetheart. It's about helping others just like you helped Mr. Zhao. Mei nodded, suddenly serious. I know. I want to teach kids that they don't have to be grown-ups to help people. Sometimes kids notice things that grown-ups don't see. That's very wise, Ling said, kissing her daughter's forehead. Now get some sleep. You have school tomorrow. And on Saturday we're going to visit Mr. Zhao at his house, right? Mei asked through a yawn. That's right. He wants to show you his garden and his famous koi pond. As Mei drifted off to sleep, still wearing the stethoscope she had insisted on keeping around her neck, Ling sat beside her, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. In the soft glow of the nightlight, she could see both the little girl Mei was and glimpses of the remarkable woman she might become. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky. Somewhere across town in his spacious but lonely mansion, Mr. Zhao was likely still awake, working on plans for the foundation that would bear Mei's name. The old businessman and the young girl, too, lives that might never have intersected if not for a school safety video and a moment of crisis. Ling thought about the ripples spreading outward from that moment, how one small action by one small girl had not only saved a life but was now poised to change many others. The foundation was just the beginning. What other wonderful things might grow from this unexpected friendship? With a gentle sigh, Ling turned out the light and left Mei to her dreams. Dreams that now held possibilities neither of them could have imagined just a few short months ago. 1 year later, 7-year-old Mei stood backstage at the Grand Convention Center, peeking through the curtains at the crowd of over 500 people. Her heart thumped wildly in her chest. She clutched Mr. Hoppy, now wearing his own tiny lab coat with the Heart Smart Foundation logo, and took deep breaths just like Mr. Zhao had taught her whenever she felt nervous. You'll do great, her mother whispered, straightening. Yes, Ling agreed softly. He has us now. As Mei drifted off to sleep, clutching Mr. Hoppy close, she dreamed of hearts, not just the physical ones that pumped blood, but the kind that connected people together. In her dream, golden threads linked her heart to her mother's, to Mr. Zhao's, and outward to all the children who were learning from Heart Smart Mei how to save lives and speak up when it mattered most. 10 years had passed since that life-changing day in the hotel lobby. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Heart Smart Foundation headquarters, casting warm light across the wall of framed newspaper articles and photos chronicling its growth. In the center was the very first photo, a tiny 6-year-old May with her stuffed rabbit, standing beside a much frailer Mr. Zhao just after his release from the hospital. 17-year-old Mei Lin studied her reflection in the glass covering the photos. She hardly resembled that small girl anymore. She had grown tall and confident, her once chubby cheeks now showing the defined features of a young woman. Only her bright, observant eyes remained the same. "Ready for your big day?" asked a familiar voice. Mei turned to see Mr. Zhao walking toward her, moving slower these days but still with purpose. At 83, his hair had thinned and whitened completely, and deep lines mapped his face, but his eyes retained their sharp intelligence and warmth. "As ready as I'll ever be," Mei replied, smoothing down the front of her navy blue blazer, with the Heart Smart pin on the lapel. Today marked the 10th anniversary of the foundation and the launch of its most ambitious program yet, a nationwide scholarship for students pursuing careers in emergency medicine. The first recipient would be announced at the ceremony later that afternoon. "Your mother just called," Mr. Zhao said, checking his watch. "She's running a few minutes late. Something about picking up a surprise for you." Mei nodded, trying to hide her nervousness about the speech she would give. Over the years, she had become accustomed to public speaking, having addressed audiences in schools, medical conferences, and even once at the United Nations Youth Forum. But today felt different, more personal, more significant. They walked together through the foundation's offices where staff members greeted them warmly. The small operation that had begun in a corner of Mr. Zhao's corporate headquarters had grown into an organization with 50 full-time employees and thousands of volunteers nationwide. The Heart Smart program was now in every state, having trained over 3 million children in emergency response. More importantly, those children had been credited with saving over 500 lives. "I've been meaning to ask you," Mr. Zhao said as they entered his office. "Have you decided which medical school you'll attend? I know you've received offers from several top universities." Mei smiled. Her dream of becoming a doctor had never wavered through the years. If anything, her work with the foundation had only strengthened her resolve. "I'm leaning toward Central University. Their emergency medicine program is excellent, and it's close to home." Close to home meant close to her mother, who now served as the foundation's executive director, and to Mr. Zhao, whose health had become more fragile in recent years despite his determined spirit. Though neither said it aloud, all three knew his heart condition was progressing despite the best medical care. "Central would be lucky to have you," Mr. Zhao said, lowering himself carefully into his chair. On his desk sat a framed photo of himself with Mei and Ling at Mei's 16th birthday celebration last year. They had gone sailing on his boat, and the picture showed all three laughing as the wind tousled their hair. They looked like family, which in all the ways that truly mattered, they had become. "Uncle David," Mei said, using the name she had begun calling him years ago. "There's something I wanted to discuss before the ceremony." Mr. Zhao raised an eyebrow. "That sounds serious." "It's about the scholarship winner." Mei hesitated. "I know the committee made their selection weeks ago, but you've been very secretive about it. Have I?" Mr. Zhao's eyes twinkled mischievously. "You know you have. Even Mom won't tell me, and she tells me everything." Before Mr. Zhao could respond, there was a knock at the door and Ling entered, looking elegant in a deep blue dress that matched her daughter's blazer. At 45, she carried herself with the confidence of a woman who had found her purpose. The struggling single mother from the hotel was now a respected leader in the nonprofit world, having completed her own education with Mr. Zhao's encouragement. "Sorry I'm late," she said, kissing Mei's cheek and squeezing Mr. Zhao's shoulder gently. "But I think you'll agree it was worth the wait." She stepped aside to reveal a woman standing in the doorway. "Mrs. Chen," Mei exclaimed, rushing forward to embrace her former elementary school teacher. "I can't believe you're here." The older teacher hugged Mei tightly. "I wouldn't miss this day for the world. Look at you, all grown up and changing the world. And to think it all started with that little safety video in first grade." "We've flown Mrs. Chen in especially for the ceremony," Ling explained. "After all, none of this would have happened without her lesson that day." Mr. Zhao rose slowly from his chair. "Indeed, I've always said there were two heroes in this story. Mei, of course, but also the dedicated teacher who made sure her students were paying attention." He extended his hand to Mrs. Chen. "I've wanted to thank you in person for many years." As they made their way to the auditorium, where the ceremony would be held, May felt a wave of emotion. 10 years ago, she had been a little girl in a too-small apartment who had simply remembered a lesson and found the courage to speak up. Now she stood at the center of something that had grown beyond anything she could have imagined. The auditorium was packed with supporters, medical professionals, educators, and media. On stage, a screen displayed photos of children who had completed the Heart Smart program and gone on to help others in emergencies, a living legacy that continued to grow. Ling spoke first, welcoming the audience and briefly recounting the foundation's achievements. Next came a video showing Heart Smart programs in action across the country, featuring the now famous cartoon character based on May with her stuffed rabbit sidekick. When it was May's turn to speak, she walked to the podium with confident steps, but her heart still fluttered with emotion. 10 years ago, she began, I was just a little girl with a stuffed rabbit who happened to be in the right place at the right time. I didn't do anything extraordinary, I just remembered what my teacher had taught me. She smiled at Mrs. Chen in the front row. What began as one life saved has become hundreds, all because children were given knowledge and encouraged to speak up. She went on to announce the new scholarship program, explaining how it would support students who demonstrated not just academic excellence, but also a commitment to emergency medicine and public health education. And now, she said, it's my great honor to announce the first recipient of the Heart Smart Future Lifesaver Scholarship. She opened the envelope handed to her by Mr. Zhao. For a moment, she stared at the name in confusion. Then her eyes widened and she looked at her mother and Mr. Zhao, who were both smiling knowingly. The first recipient, May continued, her voice thick with emotion, is me? The audience broke into applause as May stood in shock. Mr. Zhao joined her at the podium. Who better to receive this honor, he said into the microphone, than the young woman whose courage started it all. May has already been accepted to Central University's prestigious medical program, where she plans to specialize in emergency cardiology. Tears filled May's eyes as she accepted the symbolic scholarship certificate. This wasn't just financial support. She knew Mr. Zhao had long ago ensured her education would be provided for. This was something more meaningful, a recognition of her journey and her commitment to the path ahead. After the ceremony, the three of them, May, her mother, and Mr. Zhao, stood together in a quiet moment backstage. Mrs. Chen had joined them, completing the circle of people who had been part of that fateful day a decade ago. I have something for you, Mr. Zhao said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a beautiful stethoscope with May's name engraved on it. For Dr. Lin, almost. It's perfect, May whispered, running her fingers over the cool metal. There's something else, Mr. Zhao said, his voice suddenly serious. Something I've been wanting to tell both of you for some time. He took a deep breath. I've updated my will. When I'm gone, the majority of my personal estate will go to continue funding the foundation, of course. But I've also named you both as my family. Ling gasped softly. David, you don't need to. I want to, he interrupted gently. You've given me more in these 10 years than most people find in a lifetime. You became the family I never had. May felt tears threatening again. And you became the family we needed, she said softly. Later that evening, they celebrated with a quiet dinner at Mr. Zhao's home. The same home where he had once lived alone with his wealth but little joy. Now it was filled with photographs of their years together. May's school graduations, holidays they had shared, trips they had taken. As they sat in his garden watching the sunset, May realized something profound. What had begun as a random encounter between a little girl and a lonely billionaire had become a story of lives transformed. Her quick thinking had saved Mr. Zhao's life that day, but in return he had given her the chance to build a life dedicated to saving others. Mr. Zhao raised his glass in a toast. To the next 10 years, he said, and to all the lives yet to be saved. To the next 10 years, May and her mother echoed. In the fading light, May thought about the long path from that hotel lobby to this moment. She thought about the scared little girl she had been and the doctor she was becoming. She thought about the hundreds of children who had saved lives because of what the foundation had taught them. And she knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. Somewhere in her bedroom, carefully preserved on a shelf of treasured mementos, Mr. Hoppy sat watching over the snow globe that Mr. Zhao had given her in the hospital all those years ago. Both were reminders that sometimes the smallest actions, noticing what others miss, speaking up when others stay silent, can create ripples that change countless lives. And sometimes, those ripples come full circle, transforming not just the lives saved, but also the life of the one who did the saving.